New documents reveal that Elon Musk and Jeffrey Epstein exchanged several emails planning to visit each other. The Wall Street Journal reporting Musk exchanged emails in 2012 and 2013 arranging a visit to Epstein's infamous island. CNN reports that Elon Musk last year insisted he turned down multiple offers from Jeffrey Epstein to visit the island. But new documents show Elon Musk eager to go there. One email asking what day will have the wildest party, implying that's the one he wants to bring his then-wife Tallulah to. The email exchange between Musk and Epstein discusses Musk leaving St. Bart's in order to get to Epstein's island. Vivian Jenna Wilson is Elon Musk's transgender daughter who no longer talks to her father. Over the weekend, she took to social media and wrote, quote, "I'm just going to speak directly instead of being vague and cryptic. I can confirm we were in St. Bart's at the time specified in the emails, and therefore I believe they are authentic." This is the email, one of them. Where are we? So Jeffrey Epstein writes to Elon Musk on November 24th, 2012 at 9:40 a.m. How many people will you be for the heli to island? How many people do we have to helicopter to the island? And Elon Musk writes back November 25th, 2012 at 12:36 a.m. Probably just Tallulah and me. What day or night will be the wildest party on our island? From Elon Musk. That's in the Epstein files. He said Jeffrey Epstein kept trying to get him to come to the island, but Musk said no. The New York Times reporting that new emails uncovered in this latest dump reveal a warm relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin. This is an email from the files from Branson to Epstein, and Branson is saying he was assured that what Epstein had been accused of and did time for in Florida is now in the past, and Bill Gates vouched for him. So this is from the files. It's from Richard Branson to Jeffrey Epstein. Anytime you're in the area, would love to see you as long as you bring your harem. If Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor, that you slipped up many years ago, you've more than learned your lesson. You seem to have a penchant for women, but there's nothing wrong with that. No, he has a penchant for girls. Okay. Also in the files are emails Epstein wrote to himself in 2013 recounting Bill Gates's extramarital affairs. Some suggest that these emails were prepared as some sort of blackmail tactic. Bill Gates, and I do believe he was trying to blackmail Gates. Bill Gates issued a statement after the emails were released Friday calling Epstein's lurid claims about him absurd and false. In one of the 2013 emails that Epstein wrote to himself, he recalls that Bill Gates contracted a sexually transmitted disease from a Russian woman. I don't know. Should I read this email? It just shows you what a psychopath Epstein is. I don't want to read it. It's written by a really bad guy trying to set a trap for Bill Gates. And then there's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who before coming to Washington ran the investment firm Cantor Fitzgerald. Last year, Howard Lutnick said he knew Epstein but severed all ties with Epstein in 2005 because he was sickened by reports of Epstein's behavior. But according to the latest dump, there are emails from Howard Lutnick to Epstein arranging to have drinks with each other in 2011, and emails back and forth between Epstein and Lutnick's wife in 2012, arranging a visit to Epstein's island for the entire Lutnick family, including their small children. Last year, Howard Lutnick told the New York Post that in 2005, I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. But emails surfaced in the Epstein files where his wife, Allison Lutnick, writes to Epstein's assistant in 2012 arranging a visit for lunch on Epstein's island. The documents contain Epstein and his assistants planning to transport Howard Lutnick and his wife, as well as another family. It's a total of 6 young boys and 2 girls, all under the age of 17, some as young as 6 years old. Epstein arranging to transport all of them from St. Bart's, where the Lutnicks were vacationing, to Epstein's Island for lunch. Let me say something in defense of Howard Lutnick. Lutnick is an anti-vaxxer who keeps insisting we could replace the income tax with tariffs. He claims the golden age for America was when William McKinley was president. That was before we broke up the monopolies, before there was a Food and Drug Administration, before our meat was inspected, before school was mandatory and child labor was the norm. He says the golden age of America was back when the average life expectancy was 6 months? How long did people live back then? Howard Lutnick is the single stupidest person inside the Trump White House. He is actually dumber than Donald Trump. So in his defense, I have no doubt that he visited Howard Lutnick and his wife, went to Epstein's Island, and they saw young girls running around. And Lutnick said to his wife, "What a good uncle. Those must be his nieces. We should fix him up with your sister Selma's daughter. He deserves a family. Look how doting he is over those young." I honestly believe Howard Lutnick is that stupid. This entire administration is filled with Howard Lutnicks, the worst of the worst. Stupid, they're immoral, they're intellectually bankrupt, morally bankrupt, and there will be no day of reckoning for these people. Hopefully, Trump will drift off into the sunset. The best case scenario, I was thinking about this over the weekend, is he'll leave behind so much wreckage. Democrats are going to do what they had to do after Obama took over in 2009. They're going to say, we don't have time to point fingers. This is a national emergency. And I think that's what Trump is going to do to save his ass. Create so much pain, so much flotsam and jetsam that when and if he leaves office, nobody is going to have the time or energy to worry about what he did to cause all this. We have to fix it. It's going to be a May Day moment, and he's going to get off scot-free. That's the best case. That's the best case scenario. Prince Andrew, who's not a prince, Andrew Mountbatten, somebody. He mounted a lot of, I think his name is Mountbatten, Mr. Mountbatten. So I think he's in trouble. I think he's going to have to flee England. I'm hearing that he's going to shack up in a palace somewhere in the Persian Gulf because the walls are closing in on him. Over the weekend, another woman stepped forward claiming she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to have sex with the then prince. Now, she wasn't a minor. The age of consent in England is 16. I believe she claims she was in her 20s. So at least keep that in mind. And Virginia Giuffre was 17. The age of consent is 16. She says he raped her. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, was visiting Japan over the weekend. He said something that absolutely floored me. He said Andrew should testify before the House Oversight Committee here in the United States. Well, I think he's going to do that when Bill and Hillary go first. We'll see. I don't think Andrew is testifying before the House Oversight Committee. He seems to be the scapegoat. Scotland Yard was asked by the BBC if they're planning to investigate Andrew. They said no, but would open up an investigation if any evidence was presented. Well, Virginia Giuffre, who committed suicide last year, said he raped her. I think that might be hard to prosecute now, but he's taking the brunt of it in England. The new dump reveals that Ghislaine Maxwell would often call Andrew Mountbatten Sweet Pea. She called him Sweet Pea. I wonder if that's because he has diabetes. If he has, maybe she calls him Sweet Pea because he has sugar in his urine. Oh, I'm sorry, it's PEA. Sweet pea as in pea. Okay, the thing you eat, not the thing Donald Trump drinks when he's in Moscow. Allegedly, so I've heard, people are saying. During Andrew's infamous BBC interview with Emily Maitlis, Andrew swore that he last spoke to Jeffrey Epstein in December of 2010 to break off the friendship because of the accusations. He had to break it off. And he said, I wanted to do the honorable thing and fly to New York, stay in his apartment, attend a few parties that Epstein was throwing in my honor, and then break the news that our friendship is over. That he said that was the honorable thing to do. What was it, like a marriage? You have to fly to New York to break up a friendship? I have countless male friends who, if they're D-bags, I just stop talking to them. I don't walk in the park and break up with them. Well, he claims, he told Emily Maitlis, that he had no further contact with Jeffrey Epstein after December of 2010. But according to the latest dump, there's an email that Andrew wrote to Epstein in February of 2011. It says, Jeffrey, time to put something back into me before the rest of the world starts sucking it out in all their greed and demands. It was great to spend time with my U.S. family. Looking forward to joining you all again sometime. That would be February of 2011, a couple of months after he says he broke off all contact with Jeffrey Epstein. And then there's the new photos of Andrew on the floor with a woman. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is. There's an email from Andrew inviting Jeffrey Epstein to Buckingham Palace, an email from Epstein to Andrew telling the then prince he wants to fix the then prince up with a, quote, very clever Russian woman. Epstein told Andrew that he told this Russian woman that Andrew has, quote, unquote, super sperm, my least favorite Marvel superhero. Then there's some creepy emails that Andrew sent to Epstein featuring photographs of his daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie. Emails to Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein where Andrew says, your family, I'm in your hands literally, and an overabundance of the word love. A lot of love for Ghislaine and Jeffrey. Andrew was stripped of his titles back in August of last year. King Charles, who doesn't like his brother, is trying to throw Andrew out of Royal Lodge. That's the 30-room mansion given to Andrew by the Queen. His ex-wife, Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah, was living in Royal Lodge. She reportedly has moved out and has no place to live. She may already have moved in with her daughter, Princess Beatrice, in Oxfordshire. Charles wants to force Andrew out of Royal Lodge and make him move into Sandringham in Norfolk, where the royal family gathers for Christmas. He was not invited for Christmas. I think Andrew's going to try to leave the country. The latest dump reveals that Sarah Ferguson, that would be Andrew's ex-wife, thought of Jeffrey Epstein as the brother she never had. We've learned now that he gave her £15,000 to pay for some unpaid debts. One email from Sarah asks Epstein for £20,000 to pay her rent because the landlord is threatening to go public with what she owes. We learned that when Sarah visited New York, Epstein had to provide her with 4 apartments, 1 for her and 3 for her entourage. ESPN reporting that the co-owner of the football team, the New York Giants, is also mentioned repeatedly in the Epstein files. The Guardian reporting that emails reveal that Epstein was constantly scouting women for Tisch. Steve Tisch is co-owner of the Giants. He's produced movies like Forrest Gump and Risky Business. Well, we have our most recent casualty from Friday's Epstein document dump came early Monday morning out of London when Lord Peter Mandelson quit the Labour Party after more mentions of him appeared in the latest Epstein dump. It's been revealed that 20 years ago, Epstein allegedly paid $75,000 worth of Lord Mandelson's bills. In his letter of resignation to the Labour Party, Mandelson wrote, quote, "Allegations which I believe to be false, that Epstein made financial payments to me 20 years ago and of which I have no record or recollection, need investigating by me," unquote. So he's quitting the Labour Party to spend more time investigating whether or not Jeffrey Epstein gave him $75,000. Lord Peter Mandelson was appointed British ambassador to the United States by Prime Minister Keir Starmer in December of 2024. Lord Peter Mandelson was forced to step down as ambassador to the United States in September of last year when more revelations about Lord Peter Mandelson's relationship with Epstein was uncovered. The latest document dump suggests that Lord Peter Mandelson's husband accepted money from Epstein to pay his osteopath. Goldman Sachs is one of the top investment houses in the world. They helped crash the economy back in 2008. Kathryn Ruemmler right now is their top lawyer. Before she was the lawyer for Goldman Sachs, she was President Obama's White House counsel, and at one time was being considered for the job of Attorney General, right? So Obama takes over after the financial crisis. Goldman Sachs helped cause it. They were telling Goldman Sachs said they testified that we were betting against the economy while advising our clients to go all in on the economy. They were shorting the economy because they knew what was in those securitized mortgages, but they told their clients to go long on the economy. They helped destroy the economy. None of them went to prison. And this Ruemmler, Kathryn Ruemmler, was Obama's White House counsel, her top lawyer, being considered for a job of Attorney General. And she ends up, after Obama leaves office, as the top lawyer for Goldman Sachs. What are the odds of that? Well, more and more documents reveal that she considered Jeffrey Epstein the older brother, her second older brother. She would take gifts from him. She called him Uncle Jeffrey. In 2019, the year Jeffrey Epstein died, Kathryn Ruemmler wrote an email thanking Epstein for his gifts. She wrote, quote, "Am totally tricked out by Uncle Jeffrey today. Jeffrey boots, Jeffrey handbag and watch. There are new emails showing that he treated her to trips to Europe in exchange for legal advice that she seems to have provided Jeffrey Epstein right up until his death. One email Ruemmler saying she adored Jeffrey Epstein after he gave her a first-class flight to Europe. Why do they make so much money working for Goldman Sachs? This was December 25th, 2015. Kathryn Ruemmler writes, "Well, I adore him. He's like having another older brother." Unbelievable. The files have emails between Ruemmler and Epstein in which Epstein gives her advice on how to turn down the nomination for Attorney General. She didn't want to be the Attorney General, so he was giving her advice on, well, this is our old friend Larry Summers, former president of Harvard, top economic advisor to Bill Clinton and Obama. Summers, when he was Secretary of the Treasury, told Bill Clinton to repeal Glass-Steagall, which got rid of all the guardrails in banking, and that led to the financial collapse of 2008. Thank you, Larry Summers. So Obama got elected after the collapse, and Larry Summers became head of Obama's Economic Council to help Barack Obama get out of the mess that Larry Summers created. That is why nobody who crashed the economy back then went to prison. In our previous Epstein dump, we discovered emails from Larry Summers written to Jeffrey Epstein seeking advice for the lovelorn. Larry Summers wanted to know how to close on a woman he wanted to cheat on with his wife. No, cheat. He Larry Summers was asking Jeffrey Epstein for advice on how to court a woman he was planning to commit adultery with on his wife. But apparently his wife forgave him. Here they are at the Allen and Company Sun Valley Conference on July 6, 2022. That's held every year in Sun Valley, Idaho. That's the annual meeting of all the big tech and media investors and chief executives. Larry Summers, Democrat, real man of the people. The Independent reporting that contained in the new Epstein dump is an email exchange, another email exchange between Larry Summers and Jeffrey Epstein right after Donald Trump was elected in 2016. And Epstein writes to Larry Summers, "You don't understand how dumb Donald Trump is. The president of Harvard needed Jeffrey Epstein to tell him Donald Trump is dumb. Even dumb people know Donald Trump is dumb." In 2016, the president of Harvard, Larry Summers, had no idea that Donald Trump was a moron. Well, why would you expect someone who puts into writing a request from a convicted pedophile, request for advice on how to cheat on his wife, why would you expect someone that stupid to know Donald Trump is dumb? Larry Summers, former president of Harvard, didn't know that Donald Trump is dumb. In the new dump, there's a complaint on record of a woman claiming that Donald Trump forced her to give him oral sex when she was a child. There's an affidavit signed under the penalty of perjury, an accusation made by one Tiffany Doe, not Jane Doe, Tiffany Doe. Tiffany Doe. Doesn't somebody have a daughter named Tiffany? Tiffany Doe claiming she heard Trump threaten a woman to keep her mouth shut, or she'll end up like a 12-year-old girl who he said he allegedly had killed. That's according to a signed affidavit from Tiffany Doe in the Epstein files. Again, there are millions of documents inside these files, and anyone can make an accusation. So I don't know if that's true, but somebody signed an affidavit claiming that under the penalty of perjury. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of mentions of Donald Trump in the latest dump. Also in the files is Kevin Warsh, Trump's new pick to head the Federal Reserve. Warsh was on a list of guests invited to Epstein's 2010 Christmas party on St. Bart's. The documents don't seem to have the Holy Grail, which would be Epstein's client list. At least they're not releasing Epstein's client list. People are still pouring through 3 million pages of documents. There are about 180,000 images, flight logs, you got tips to the FBI, and there are like 2,000 videos. So they were released, on Friday, and people are still pouring through it. But Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, says that's it. Todd Blanche released the files and said there will be no more documents forthcoming. Case closed. Case closed. They're not reopening the case. It's over. From what I'm reading so far, there are no videos of famous people in compromising situations, just regular run-of-the-mill pornography that Jeffrey Epstein purchased. There are hundreds of texts between Steve Bannon and Epstein during the last 2 years of Epstein's life, 2018 through 2019, when Steve Bannon was brought in to rehabilitate Epstein's image. And this rehabilitation went on right until Epstein was arrested and then found dead in his jail cell. Bannon began interviewing Epstein in 2018. Those video interviews went on into 2019, the year he died. They stopped right before his arrest. Portions of some of those interviews were posted on YouTube over the weekend. As recently as, I'd say about 12 hours ago, the interview was still up on YouTube. I'm going to assume it's been taken down by now. Bannon talks to Epstein for several hours and asks him about everything but the child rape They talk about the 2008 financial collapse. Epstein blamed Clinton for the 2008 financial collapse. They talked about calculus, the soul, dark matter, investing. Epstein says the market is biological, not math. He said you can't measure investment results. Anyone who says they can is lying. Only briefly does Steve Bannon ask Epstein about the time he served for soliciting an underage prostitute. Bannon asks, "Are you the devil?" Epstein says no. Well, I guess that settles it. Epstein said the mothers in India who get the polio vaccines for their children through his charities don't care if it comes from a sexual predator. The files contain information about Epstein's final hours. His cellmate reportedly told him not to commit suicide. Epstein assured him he wouldn't. Epstein's death, again, in these files, confirmed as a suicide. The files show that in order to remove Epstein's body from the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan, a decoy corpse had to be used to distract the press. Again, this dump says no suicide note was found. It's worth noting that by some estimates, the Justice Department only released half of the Epstein files. 3.5 million pages have been released, but there are about 2.5 million still being held back. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says that's all we're going to get. We're not getting the rest. House Republican Thomas Massie and House Democrat Ro Khanna authored the Epstein Transparency Act that was signed into law on November 19th, giving the Justice Department exactly a month to turn everything in the Epstein files over with little to no redactions. Ro Khanna, Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat, appeared on CNBC after the latest release and said it wasn't good enough. Khanna said, if we don't get the remaining files, then Republican Thomas Massie and I are prepared to move on impeachment or contempt against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Republican Thomas Massie said the Department of Justice is purposely withholding key documents from the Epstein files, especially statements, sworn statements given to the FBI by victims and witnesses. Ro Khanna said, what has been released is sickening and reveals an entire class of powerful people in politics, finance, education, and technology, engaging either in the worst behavior or willing to look the other way. And CNN reporting that former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and his wife sent emails asking to stay inside Jeffrey Epstein's apartment. That would be former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. If Ehud Barak married Barack Obama, what would his name be? Figure it out. If Ehud Barak married Barack Obama, it would be Ehud Obama. If Barack Obama married Ehud Barak, all right, I've been depressed. This stuff, I pour through this shit for hours. I don't recognize my country anymore. I don't recognize humanity anymore. So from what I've been reading, the enablers, the top enablers for Jeffrey Epstein were Ghislaine Maxwell. Then there's this accountant, Richard Kahn, and a lawyer named Darren Indyke. We now know immediately after Epstein's death, the Trump Justice Department was planning to indict more people other than Ghislaine Maxwell, but we don't know who. Not contained in any of these documents that have been released are sworn witness statements under the penalty of perjury, statements from victims and witnesses given to the FBI in the lead up to the prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein and then Ghislaine Maxwell. Remember, Epstein was being held inside a jail cell, and prosecutors were getting statements from witnesses and victims, sworn statements. The case is closed, so those statements legally can be released because it's not interrupting any ongoing investigation. We now know that Ghislaine Maxwell is claiming several of Epstein's closest friends and associates made sweetheart deals with the Justice Department to avoid prosecution. Who are they, and what were the deals? Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi says the case is now closed. The archives of the Epstein files are now closed. The story is over. Is it?